Hello, America. I'm Dave Kelmer, and welcome to another unlimited segment of Veterans News. And with us today is Shad Meshad, our friend and associate.
Hello, and welcome also to everyone who is viewing this program from locations all over the world. Are we ready to get started, Dave?
We're ready, Shad. Let's do it, and we'll be right back. We're back, and Shad, let's get into it. I want to know about the psychological element of returning veterans. You know, World War II, Vietnam, Iraqi vets. That's what's on the table today. I can tell you about the benefits, but I want you to tell me about the psychological element that these guys are affected with when they come back.
Dave, as you know, and you've been working with me over 30 years, even though you were in benefits, you've also been on the counseling side, and
Right.
you know, same old in many ways and very different in other ways. One of the biggest things that we see is the fact that we have a war both in Afghanistan and Iraq that are dealing with National Guard and reservists. This is quite different than when you and I were there. It was most an enlisted army, and of course, most of our work started around the Vietnam veteran.
Right.
Not that we haven't worked with World War II vets, Korean vets in Vietnam and Gulf War I. So obviously, we have a lot of problems right now in whether it's benefits or mental health. They're all one and the same when you put it inside of individual.
Right.
As you know, if the benefits aren't there or if the counseling's not there, particularly with the young men and women that are coming back, and as you heard me say, women, this is kind of a new thing.
Let me interrupt. When you said benefits, I just realized that for Iraqi veterans, they get a complete examination. If there is any additional things that are found in the examination, they get follow-up treatment, they get a diagnosis, and they get a follow-up letter for anything that's found. Yeah, and this is for Iraqi veterans returning, and of course it's done by the VA, and just to keep these guys up to snuff, as it were, medically and physically.
And also the vet centers are available, you know, from day one, from any veteran coming back that has any issues, particularly in the area of readjustment counseling. And those have been around. This is starting the 26th year of the Vet Center program.
Right.
Obviously, you came in right after I got it started, and
Right.
I was there for about 7 years. You were there,
Right.
God only knows how long, but the programs are in place. The big problem right now is for these guys are being recycled back and forth, and they don't really see themselves as veterans. They're
Right.
actually full-time soldiers, full-time husbands, wives, workers, civilians. It's really mixed. It's very different today.
One of the important things is that Iraqi veterans returning only get 90 days to apply for the whatever dental benefits they need. That's the shortest program is dental benefits. They only get 90 days from the date of discharge, but they get complete dental care if they apply within the 90 days. It can run over the 90 days for completion of treatment, but whatever they need, they have to apply, as opposed to you and I, we had a year when we got out for all the dental work you need. So the time's been cut down drastically.
But I have a question for you, Dave.
Okay.
And I hear this a lot, and we get this a lot, and I know we refer a lot of our calls to you, and I do want to talk about your area benefits, because I know there's such a great need for it, and I understand there's been a lot of attrition with people like yourselves that have been in that area. But one of the things is if they're in the reserves or they're in the National Guard, how does that work? They're not really a veteran, even though they're the veteran of the war. They're not a veteran, say you and I are, have served their time, they're discharged or whatever. They're really on standby duty. Do they have the same benefits as, say, you and I did? And that question's asked a lot.
It's really a good question. The criteria is the veteran must have been activated as a unit or as an individual to active duty. That is what qualifies him for VA benefits. As long as he's activated and goes on active duty, that's what qualifies him for the VA benefits that exist now.
And are his benefits full and the same as, say, one like from Vietnam when you finished and you were discharged or whatever? Because they're still in the reserves. There's still possibility of serving again on, in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Well, it would essentially be the same as a person on active duty. And they are generally not going to take advantage of their educational benefits until they leave the military. So after that, their activation, the period they were called to active duty for, is what grants the benefits. Stick around. We'll be right back. Shad, now that we're back, what are some of the issues of returning Iraqi veterans that you're seeing today?
Yeah, Dave, it was interesting. Right after the war kicked off, March of 2003, most of the calls were from the mothers and the young wives of these veterans, and they were concerned about some of the stuff, emails and things they were getting back from the soldiers several months after the first assault and when finally Baghdad fell and whatever. So it was very interesting. After the first year, and as these veterans came back, we started getting calls from this new era of veterans, both from Afghanistan and Iraq. And many of them, once again, were very similar to the things that we saw when we were in the Vet Center program and in our counseling with war trauma, all of the different readjustment problems as it is to go into a hard core areas such as Iraq or Afghanistan, two of the toughest terrains, comparable to but different as in Vietnam with the triple canopy jungle and the rice paddies and things. And the fact that most of these men were confused about when this war was going to end, which is still going on, but they were still concerned and up for reassignment, which occurred. We're now seeing individuals that are going back for the third time, and occasionally some of these men going back for the fourth time, and they're worn out, and they're being recycled because we don't have a draft now. And not that I'm supporting the draft, but because that we're spread thin in two major fronts, Afghanistan and Iraq, we're depleting, first of all, the reserves and the National Guard, and at the same time, we're getting, as you know, in our world, trauma, we're getting layered post-traumatic stress disorder, something we've never seen before. This is new.
I've seen exactly what you said, Shad. As the director of benefits at the VA hospital, I've seen veterans who have gotten out of the service two, one with 9 years, one with 11 years of service, because they were required to go back to Iraq a third and a fourth time. And they chose to leave the service with that kind of time in the service. So I can see very well, like you say, the only difference is we don't have the triple canopy and the rice paddies, but we got the desert and the storms and everything else. Yeah.
Very tough terrain. The other thing, too, now is this whole issue about their jobs being guaranteed when they get back. Well, it sounds good on paper, like so many things, but many of these men and women have missed 2 and 3 years in a position that grows with time in the job, and so in a way they're 2 or 3 years behind, and it's very difficult for them to be at the level. And as their families expands, needs expands. As you know today, I mean, gas is $3 to going to $4 a gallon. Everything is up. It's been a very unusual period in our history, and so the readjustment is probably going to be more difficult than ever. We need to be ready for that. And one thing is it's a bad time to be downsizing anything, particularly when it comes to veteran services. And
well, with veteran services, you probably know that veterans now only have 2 years for all medical benefits that they're eligible to get. After that, their income is dependent on whether they get medical benefits with payment or without payment.
We need to talk more about that when we come back.
Right, exactly. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We're back, and I'm glad you stayed with us because I have an important question for you, Shad. I want to know what it's like for veterans and their families after 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 tours in Iraq. What's that like?
Well, Dave, it's very interesting. As I said, this is very different. We're recycling men and women back into the same zone, and obviously, as you've seen, this has been a very difficult conflict, both in Afghanistan and Iraq, particularly because most of our troops are there. But what we're starting to get, and really is tough, tough to answer, and we don't answer a lot of these questions as we listen. A lot of men, particularly most of our calls, are around soldiers, combat soldiers, that are debating going AWOL or deserting because they can't take another tour. They don't want to go back. They're starting to see no light at the end of the tunnel. And it's, kind of reminds us of a time 30, 40 years ago during our Vietnam era. But we're starting to see that, and we're starting to hear the dialogue. And I never advised them to do anything that would hurt them in the long run, which deserting or going AWOL or whatever would. But they do need to talk it out, so we listen. And there are some options. They could go to the chaplain. The DOA actually does have psychiatric and counseling services available. Most of them fear that because they feel it hinders their career. It gets into their records. It's a stigma. And even though the DOA has said over and over, even on national TV, we don't believe that, they believe that. The soldier believes that once that's in the record, or they don't want to go back into combat, well, that's what they're trained to do, then it sort of puts them in a dilemma. But we do find that by them talking it out or finding an option, or, worst scenario, it'd be better than to desert, to go in there and suffer the fact that maybe you're not going to become a master sergeant or a general or whatever. Your being, your well-being, your mental health is more important than, quote, a career in the military. But at the same time, this takes hours sometimes for someone to work through it because they have seen the elephant, so to speak, many times over.
Yeah. You reminded me of some of the women veterans that I see. Women veterans, and I see dependents of veterans whom were killed in Iraq, and they're applying for the benefits to which they're eligible and entitled, which is roughly $950. It's called DIC. Dependency Indemnity Compensation is what DIC stands for when a veteran dies either in the service or as a result of a service-connected disability. So I see, of course, the women veterans, and I see also the women who are applying for benefits based on the death of a military veteran husband. So I see women on both occasions, and you just made me aware of that when I asked you the question. So it's very, very interesting, all the things you must deal with in dealing with the spouses and the widows.
Absolutely. Now, this DIC compensation, is that $900, is that every month?
That's every month.
For the rest of their life?
That is correct.
Okay.
And of course, the insurance for Iraqi veterans is now $250,000, has increased from the old $6,000 and then $12,000, but now it's $250,000. Shad, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Glad you stuck around. We got some good stuff for you. Shad, you were talking during the break about a question you had.
Yeah, what about this issue about a VA loan for a wife of a soldier or someone? We get occasionally, and I never know what to do but refer to you.
Yeah, there are qualifications for everything. A wife can buy a house under the GI Bill the same as the veteran can if the veteran is deceased from a service-connected disability, and she would normally be receiving the DIC, the Dependency Indemnity Compensation, in which case she then is eligible to go to school on the GI Bill for a 4-year education as well as the kids of the veteran, and buy a house because her husband died during his military service or as a result of a service-connected disability.
Plus the $250,000 if he passes on active duty.
On active duty, that is correct.
Wow.
That is correct, yes.
Boy, that's a real big change since our tour of duty.
Yeah, big change.
Well, I really appreciate you clarifying that.
Well, that's glad. I'm glad to do it. I'm glad to help out because the more we can tell our veterans about what we're doing, the better I will feel and the better they will feel. So with that, Shad, we're going to wrap it up and make sure you're with us for the next segment of Veterans News. Shad, thanks so much.
Love being here as your guest.
All right.